Are you worried about today's dire financial situation?
Put simply, I would argue the Biden economic plan is working.
The storms on Wall Street continue today after regulators seized the assets of Silicon Valley Bank, marking the largest bank failure since the 2008 financial crisis.
Do you worry you'll have enough to pay your mortgage, pay your children's college tuition, enough to retire?
I believe our banking system remains strong.
Regional banks in focus once again today as the market digests the fallout of the First Republic failure.
You have questions, we have answers. It's The Gold Standard with Ken Russo and Jennifer Horn.
Thanks for joining us. It is The Gold Standard radio show. Ken Russo and Jennifer Horn back together again. And I always smile when I see you come waltzing in the studio, Ken.
Ready to get at it, Jen.
Ready to get at it because today it's like a quiz show. We're going to play like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, except today's topic is Do You Know?
Yeah, do you know?
From the Do You Know files.
Do you know that we saw the first bank failure Friday afternoon after the close?
Wait,
Republic
what are the chances?
First
Friday
Bank.
afternoon? You've got to be making this up.
Yeah,
Come
no.
on.
Republic First Bank, and remember 1 year ago was First Republic Bank.
Right.
So I guess if you have Republic in the name of your bank, you know, or you use a Republic sort of bank, you should probably run for the hills.
Wow. So we've got the first bank collapse. We're going to jump into that today. We've got a couple of questions for you, things that you may know, maybe you don't know, but you should know because it impacts your family's future, your financial freedom, your privacy. These are big concerns. So we're going to talk about that today. But, you know, Ken, we always like to mosey back in time to set the stage as to how we got to where we are today. Now, we're in a huge debt bubble. We talk about that, right?
We are?
I think. Let me check my notes. Hold on.
I read a little stat. $35 trillion in $100 bills is 19,000 miles high. Think about that.
Unreal. Who
Think
wants
about
to
that
stack
for a
them too?
second.
And what if a wind comes? You get right up to that 18,999 mark, and you're like, oh man, I got to start over. But we talk about how we got here. We got here because we've got crazy overspending. We have a devalued dollar. And if you go back to 1971, you realize that gold started to really, the dollar started to have some problems because Richard Nixon said, you know what? We've got all this money popping around here. We don't need to back it up by gold. Let's just spend. Let's have a little fun. Let's have a cash party.
That was like the starting point, right?
Yeah.
The starting gates. You know what I mean? When we go to a horse race?
That's right.
And all the horses are banging in the gates.
Jiggling.
What do you mean? I've instructed Secretary Connolly to suspend the convertibility of the dollar into gold.
Why not?
We are going to print money. There's going to be a printing party. Jennifer Horn, Ken Russo, you are not invited.
We can't come, right? No, we did not get the invite to the printing party. Bummer.
But, you know, that's why monopoly money and a lot of the things we're going to talk about today, do you know? I mean, it goes over a lot of these simple facts, which surprisingly, Jen, how could I put this? Our money, our dollars, our nest eggs, our financial system, our political situation, our leadership, it's undergoing a controlled demolition.
Ooh, I like the way you put that. A controlled demolition. Not all happening at once, but this is happening like bit by bit, right?
Well, bit by bit until then all of a sudden. Now, what is going to be that event that causes the all of a sudden? Now, the all of a sudden happens and it's too late to make any moves.
Right. So you got to make your moves now.
You have to try to ask yourself, if there is a demolition of our system and our dollar continues to lose tremendous, tremendous value, or let's say that the banking system, let's just say, collapses.
Right.
Or let's just say we have a debt crisis. Or let's just say we have a currency crisis. I mean, there's a lot of things here that can go bad. What are you going to be left with? And I would urge people to think about it in those simplest of terms. And that's where real money comes into play. So we joke about Richard Nixon taking real money and making it into fake money, because that's basically what happened. But if you have something you've saved, an IRA, an old 401k, or maybe just some assets at the bank, it's not too late to say to yourself, no matter what happens, I want to know at least some of that is where I can get to it At least some of it is protected. And that's what we're talking about, diversifying your paper assets, lowering your risk, because people, this is not going to just go away if we print another $20 trillion.
Right.
It's not going to go away if the government all of a sudden has 50 trillion or 100 trillion of debt. And I would let you in on a little surprise. It's going to be that much worse. The system is going to be that much more risky. Our dollar is going to lose that much more value. The markets are going to be that much more volatile, and there's going to be that much more chaos. So in order to kind of protect yourself from that, wouldn't it make sense that you did something that was simple, a good foundational product for your money? Wouldn't it make sense to kind of go back to basics? And I ask this all the time to you, Jen. What is the only form of money that has existed and survived in its original form throughout history? And that would be?
Gold.
There it is.
Okay, 808-555-322-4653. I'm going to throw a question at you, but 855-322-4653. That's Midas Gold Group. America First Patriots, veteran-owned, not a call center, so you can actually get real personal attention and get a couple of options ahead of you so you can figure out the best way to add gold and precious metals to your portfolio. Diversify. 855-322-4653. I want to talk about the bank collapse. I want to talk about the do-you-knows, but I think there are a lot of people out there, and you've taught me that the rate of inflation sort of tracks the rate of gold. So when inflation goes up, the price of gold gets higher. I think one of the real concerns right now with people is they say, well, gold is priced too high, or it's higher than it's been. So what do you say to people who are worried right now about the price of gold? Is it still a really good place for them to go?
The high of gold in 1980 was $800 per ounce. An inflation-adjusted price of gold in 2024 would be $29,000 per ounce.
Wow.
The high point of silver in 1980s was 50. The inflation-adjusted price of silver today would be $1,350 per ounce.
Incredible.
Now, if we just look at 20 years ago, when gold was about $300 per ounce, it's gone up by about a factor of 8. If gold just does the same thing that it's done in the last 20 years, a factor of 8, based on today's prices, is anywhere from $18,000 to $20,000 per ounce for gold.
It's amazing.
I would also tell anybody, Jen, and that's a very good, relevant question, we've had such a buildup for 50 years of all this debt, all this money created out of thin air, money just clicked by a computer mouse. We've just started with the gold price. Once it broke 2,000 and stayed over 2,100, that's a breakout. Who knows how high it can go, but that's not what we really concentrate on. What we concentrate on is how much purchasing power our paper money is going to lose.
What it brings you, the value it brings you, essentially, not the value that you're going to lose with regular dollars,
and
right?
We've gone over these numbers before. In 1971, $1, whatever cost $1 in 1974, would now cost on average $7.65. Okay? Whatever you had in 1999, if you had $1, it's now worth about half of that. So prices have pretty much doubled. That's where we are. I mean, I think I read an article the other day. Every year under Joe Biden, our dollar has lost at least 5% of its purchasing power.
It's frightening.
I would probably say it's more than that. But according to their skewed inflation-adjusted numbers, I mean, that's at least what the facts say.
Right.
So no matter how you stack it, and we're not in the business of giving financial advice or guarantees, but I'll tell you what, our dollar is guaranteed to buy less in the future because they are going to spend more, they're going to print more, they're going to borrow more. Everything is debt. The whole world is doing it. There's not a doubt in my mind that the paper that we own, dollars, Federal Reserve notes, are going to lose purchasing power and lose value. And there's not a doubt in my mind over the next 10 or 20 years that the price of gold will reflect that at a higher price because that's what it's always done.
Yeah.
The question is that forecasts are for suckers. Nobody has a crystal ball. Nobody knows how high it can go. But I would just tell someone, make sure you have enough diversification and make sure you have enough a distance between yourself and what's coming financially. And the easiest way to protect yourself is to convert some of that paper money, some of those paper assets, either in your bank account, either in your IRA, in an old 401k, convert it to physical gold, physical silver, basic products, and we can get into that during the second part of the show, which is really important, right? I want a lot of people to understand that the products we choose are very important. But this is the warning. The writing is on the wall. We've gone over 51 of 52 former dynasties, economies that have relied on printed fiat money, have all either devalued it severely, hyperinflation, or outright just defaulted. That's where we are. It's not going to take much more to have something very serious happen to our money and our financial system. Now is the time for people to do something about their situation instead of just watching it all go down.
Waiting and hoping for the best.
Our money disappears. We don't know if we can get access to it. I understand that our paper money has merit, Jen, but it's backed by nothing. It's losing tremendous value.
Right.
And when it comes down to it, it's just mere digits on a screen. So people have to understand that gold is a store of value. Our currency is not.
Now, if you'd like to call Midas Gold Group, we tell you that you should do that. You shouldn't wait around. 855-322-GOLD, 855-322-4653, MidasGoldGroup.com. You can go see them face-to-face in person in Phoenix, Arizona, in Thousand Oaks, California. And before we run up to the break, I do want to talk with you, Ken, about this Republic Bank. You mentioned it, but this is the first official bank collapse of the year. I think one of the things that we constantly think is that if our money is in the bank, it is safe. But that's not the case with this banking system.
Well, it's not. It's a fractional system, so that means a fraction of our money is there, right? They loan a lot of money out. They borrow, they invest a lot of their money. They're involved in a lot of these bonds. A lot of the regional banks have real estate, commercial real estate. And the interest rate environment right now is a lot higher than it was a few years ago. As interest rates stay high, Jen, these banks are under severe pressure. It's not a coincidence that a lot of people are taking a lot of their deposits out of these banks, even the bigger banks, and they're putting it into something that they could rely on. And a good portion of that money, especially through conservative-minded people, is going into gold and going into physical silver.
All right, we have Do You Knows, and we have some info for you on what kind of gold you want to have with you, right?
That's right.
So we got a lot more coming for you. 855-322-GOLD. 855-322-4653, MidasGoldGroup.com. There's more up ahead. It's the Gold Standard Radio Show with Ken Russo and Jennifer Horn.
Dr. Gorka here. You're listening to The Gold Standard with your hosts, Ken Russo from veteran-owned Midas Gold Group and Jennifer Horn. Owning private money in the form of physical gold and silver is perhaps more important than ever to your long-term financial security. As U.S. banks fail, the Biden administration sends hundreds of billions abroad while depleting our strategic oil reserves. However, the biggest financial threat may be coming from within: central bank digital currency. The patents have been filed and the big banks have released plans for implementation. Midas Gold Group sees tyrannical implications, the end of cash, the end of financial privacy, big government able to see your every purchase. Could there be ties to social credit? Hear more commentary on the political and economic issues that affect your financial security right here on the Gold Standard. You can create your own Gold Standard with a call to Midas Gold Group, 855-322-GOLD. That's 855-322-4653, MidasGoldGroup.com.
Welcome back. It is a Gold Standard Radio Show. Ken Russo and Jennifer Horn back together again. Thank you all for being with us. And we thought today, Ken, that we would play a little game.
Okay.
Remember when you were a kid and you watched Saturday morning cartoons and they'd always say, "The more you know."
What a beautiful time.
Wasn't that
wrestling,
nice? Yeah, wrestling, and you had
over easy eggs with some bacon.
Oh yeah, romper room sometimes. I see Ken.
Pajamas, slippers.
It's a good time. Well, we're not playing The More You Know, but we are playing Do You Know
Do
today.
You Know?
Yes, and I think I'll start you off with, do you know that products matter when
They
it comes
definitely
to gold?
do. Yeah. I had a client that called me last week, and There's a very popular conservative radio, national syndicated host
Okay.
that is sponsored by this particular gold company. There's a lot of gold companies that are in the same sort of boat.
A lot.
The client told me that they were pushing the 3/4 ounce silver blue whale coin. And I said to myself, well, I mean, come on, guys. I mean, really? These are good people. This is their hard-earned money. American Eagles, silver bars, gold bars, basic stuff.
And the reason you've said that, see if I'm right here, this is my quiz for myself, is that if you have gold and silver and you ever need to sell them, you want to get the best money that you can. And so you want a product that is going to get you the most value, right?
Well, you want that plus something that's liquid.
And that
with
you can
these
get rid of,
particular
right.
products, there might only be a 10,000 coin mintage.
Mm-hmm.
The companies endorse these because you can't price shop them.
Right.
And then they tell you that it's very rare and, it's only such a low mintage. Listen, folks, just stick with basic stuff. Deal with somebody you can trust and somebody who's going to be straightforward.
And give you the good stuff.
Well, I mean, the U.S. Mint makes 2 gold coins, the Buffalo and the Eagle. And they make 1 silver coin, the Silver Eagle. That's it.
Yeah.
There's no really reason to go in other different directions. Now, if those are not available, then we could always look at some of the other major mints. But when it comes to just weird animals on weird coins and all this stuff, it's a trick that we've seen too many times. And unfortunately, it's going to be left. People are going to have a lot of metal, and they're not going to be able to sell it.
Yeah.
So give us a call if you have some questions, if you're a little confused about what your dealer might have done to you, or I'm a little embarrassed that these people are even, endorsing and promoting those sorts of products. But it happens a lot. But there is a way out, but I would just say try not to dilly-dally, so to speak.
This is a rule in the wine industry as well. Do you know that wine that they sell at the grocery store that maybe is not the best, they always put an animal on the label. So don't fall for the animal. It's true. Do not fall for the animal tricks. And this is why I love working with Midas, because I know that you're getting face-to-face time with people who really care about the options they're giving to you. This is not a call center. They're not throwing out money to people who can hoodwink you into buying products that aren't going to benefit you.
And you can see us. I mean, that's a big advantage for people in Phoenix. They were across the street from the Deer Valley Airport. Come on in. We're in Thousand Oaks, California. Come on in. If you have that type of advantage or privilege to do that, take advantage of it. I'm a little bit wondering and scratching my head why I'm keep going to the office every day in either place, and there's a line that's not out the door. I mean, we have banks that are failing. We have a government that is totally reckless when it comes to their spending. We have debt that's out the wazoo.
Yeah.
And we have a deep state that wants to pretty much just collapse everything. They hate us. I'm sure they want to give us
everything.
One more middle finger before they kind of fade off into the night, right?
Yeah.
So I'm curious what it's going to take for people to really realize what's going on. And we've had a lot of calls from people even recently, do you know, that they've never even bought gold before in their whole life. Very wealthy people, wealthy doctors, engineers, technology people. These people for the first time in their lives are saying, I would like some representation in physical gold.
Right.
It's changing, Jen. And when people realize that the investment community, gold only makes up about 1% of the financial assets that are out there, it's very small. Just a little bit of an increase in demand is going to cause the price to go up substantially. Yeah,
and that's where people are headed. So MidasGoldGroup.com for those resources to see the products. 855-322-4653, 855-322-GOLD. And you can see them, as we talked about. That's the best thing about Midas. You can see them in person in Thousand Oaks and in Phoenix, Arizona. All right, so do you know?
If not, call in, right?
If not, exactly. Yes. 855-322-4653.
We can do a Zoom call if you want.
You can see their beautiful
on the computer.
faces.
There you go.
All right. So do you know?
Yes.
What an absolute mess our financial system is?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Is that a duh?
Yeah, and do you know that it's going to get a lot worse?
I do know that.
So do you know that you still have time to do something about it and maybe protect a little bit of what you worked hard for, right?
That's right. You got to have those different buckets, right? You got to preserve the wealth that you have
we can go
earned.
over the numbers again. They're just astronomical. You know, over $1 trillion a year just on the interest of our debt. Over $35 trillion of debt, and it'll probably be $50 trillion by 2030. The numbers are huge. They're not going to stop.
All right. Do you know the banking system is leveraged And very dangerous. And we just talked about that first bank collapse.
Yeah, I mean, it is. We'll see more, right? I mean, what other new program are they going to have to kind of slow walk the inevitable? A lot of the clients we deal with, they already think the banks have already failed, and it's just a matter of time before, more kind of just go down like bowling pins. So that's the way it goes.
And that's where we're trusting. Those are the people we trust with our money. So time to trust yourself. Protect your freedom. All right. Do you know that the U.S. dollar as the world reserve currency is waning? We know this. We can see it.
And we've been talking about how many of these other countries want to do more business in their local currencies, right? I think 20% of all the trades last year in oil were done outside of the dollar.
Right.
We've talked about Russia and how they used to do 80% of their business in dollar, euro. Now it's like 15%. A lot of the world is kind of tired of being bullied around by the United States, their sanctions and our military-industrial complex, and they're starting to do business on their own. Bad news for the dollar as the world reserve currency. The trend is it's definitely waning.
And I always say, look and see what our competitors are doing. And I have heard time and time again that China, they're looking for gold, right?
Central banks are buying gold.
Yeah.
The central banks of the Far East are buying gold, not of the United States, not of United Kingdom, but, China, India, Russia, these countries that understand gold, they're buying historical amounts of gold.
So if they are, that means I want to do that too. You want to keep up,
and
right?
what are they selling?
Mm-hmm.
There have been net sellers of our debt since 2014. So they're avoiding dollars, they're avoiding U.S. debt, and they're accumulating tangible assets like gold.
All right, here's another duh. Do you know that the purchasing power of our dollar is dwindling?
Right. Well, one stat that I always like to tell my clients is $1 from 1971 has lost 98% of its value versus gold. $1 from 1971 is worth about 15 cents. $1 from 1999 is worth 55 cents.
Wow.
On the other hand, $1 of gold from 1999 is worth over $8. It's a big difference, 55 cents versus $8. Would you rather have your pile of savings or your pile of stocks or your pile of mutual funds? Would you rather have it in just dollar-denominated paper assets? Or would you rather have it in something strong that has stood the test of time, like a pile of gold?
I like a pile of gold.
So would I.
I
and even silver.
Yeah, hey, bring it on. All right, ready for the next one? Do you realize that a sovereign debt crisis is quickly approaching?
It is. It's unsustainable.
All right, tell me how and why. And
well, first
I know
of all,
we can't say when. We know it's coming, though.
First of all, it's already big, right? And the cost to service that debt is already big. Where does the money come to even pay for the interest, right?
Yeah.
And
more
we also,
debt.
Right, more debt. And we also have an administration that said that they could promise at least $2 trillion in deficits each year for the next 10 years. Minimum.
Wow.
So there's a pretty good chance that it's going to be much more than that. I think world debt right now is about $320 trillion. The whole world is doing it. The Pentagon can't even account for $1.9 trillion worth of their assets. It's just a mess. So would you tell me, would more debt and more printing and more borrowing solve an already existing debt problem?
I'm going to go with no. That's not going to solve the problem.
So eventually, we will have a sovereign debt crisis.
All right, finally, did you realize that financial privacy is being threatened by central bank digital currency?
I would hope people realize that.
This
We're headed
is, to me,
towards
the
a system.
serious thing that we don't hear about enough.
Well, not to mention monitoring, but also that it's programmable. So what that means is that it can be turned on and off, depending on your religious affiliation, political affiliation.
How mouthy you are on social media.
Like.
Right.
Yeah. Whatever. The bottom line is that privacy does matter. Freedom does matter.
Yep.
And gold is a way to have both, and sovereignty. We're inevitably headed towards a system that they're going to spin into a digital system.
Yeah.
Then that system is more than likely going to fail, crash, and then we're all stuck.
Protect your financial freedom, protect your privacy.
Then we have to agree to any type of conditions that the government sets. And in my opinion, that's not acting from a position of strength as an investor or an American. That's acting as a position of desperation. You don't want to be in a position of desperation when it comes to your money.
Amen to that.
And that's where gold comes into play.
All right, so here's what you're going to need to do. Call right now, Midas Gold Group, 855-322-4653, 855-322-GOLD. More information, MidasGoldGroup.com, MidasGoldGroup.com, or 855-322-GOLD. Thanks so much for joining us. It's a Gold Standard Radio Show with Ken Russo and Jennifer Horn.